A silent revolution is taking place in the heart of Boston, Massachusetts. A revolution rooted in a Bitcoin meetup called Mass Adoption. Mass adoption gatherings aren't just about discussing magic internet money, but are about the community, connection, sovereignty, and the shared belief in a decentralized future achieved through the hardest money ever known to mankind, the mass adoption of Bitcoin. We are going to journey deep into the heart of mass adoption, where bonds are forged, knowledge is shared, and the future is being shaped, one meetup at a time. Let's see how it all first started.
My story of Bitcoin started during the beginning of COVID. I ended up shutting down my businesses because I could just feel we were going in the wrong direction. And that gave me a lot of time, free time. And I started watching all sorts of podcasts, and then I started reading books, and I first read Saifedean Ammouste's Bitcoin Standard, and started investing a little bit in it. And the more I read, and the more I watched, and the more I learned, I'm like, wait a minute, this is not a joke. This is a real thing, and this is the tool we need.
You know, historically with Gresham's law, where money kind of eventually migrates for the soundest form, our view is that there really is only one choice, that Bitcoin will be the category killer. The way Amazon was the category killer and things like Yahoo Shopping are just simple kind of basic things. This will have the greatest network effect given its sound currency.
As we learned in Ottawa during the trucker convoy, when our accounts were being frozen, and it's not just bank accounts, it was credit cards, lines of credit, corporate accounts, everything was frozen. We couldn't transact. It was our government trying to starve us and trying to kill us. And hard money, Bitcoin, is the only thing that was able to get through to the truckers, the only donations that were not blocked.
I started discovering, that Bitcoin was freedom technology. It also helps increase your privacy and self-sovereignty. These are things I never thought about or thought that I needed, or I never understood that I had a right to privacy. I never valued that right until I became a Bitcoiner. I stumbled upon an Andreas Antonopoulos lecture a little after the COVID crash in 2020. It was the Internet of Money series, and Andreas definitely orange-pilled me. There was one video in particular. It's called What is Bitcoin and Why Does It Matter? After I saw that video, I dropped everything I was doing. I sold all my shitcoins, sold all my stocks, and went all in on Bitcoin. I was very convinced. And then I started a Bitcoin education Discord server. I add to it every single day. There's probably over 50,000 hours of research in there now.
The world is waking up to it, right? I mean, we've got, so there are 21 million of them, as we know. There are only 19 out now. It's growing to 21. It's a very small number left to be mined. There are 8 billion people in the world, right? There are probably 100 million people who are kind of aware of it or own some of it, admittedly small amounts. People, addresses with more than one coin, it's a few million. I mean, we're just in the very, very early days, and people are going to come to see, as I believe, that this is the soundest form of money ever created. It's sounder than gold, and it's easier to use and store than gold. And so what's going to happen, I think, is people, with each cycle, more and more people join, and they get comfortable. And so every downturn obviously scares some people, but it also represents an opportunity for new people to join. And the BlackRock ETF, which was just filed, I mean, this is one of the largest money managers in the world that 3 years ago was shitting on Bitcoin, and now they're going to open a Bitcoin ETF. I think as it continues to perform well, people are going to go, yeah, we don't need to put all our money into that. We need to own some of it.
All right, this all sounds great, but how are people and companies coming to these conclusions? The next guy is really into numbers, so maybe he can lay it out a little more for us.
I felt that there's a way, from my experience, of calculating the intrinsic value of Bitcoin using credit default swaps on the various nations, the fiat nations of the world that have actively traded credit default swap markets against the likelihood of them defaulting. Insurance against default. And so it's a pretty simple concept. It's more difficult to calculate, but basically we take this open market pricing mechanism, which is the premiums charged to insure debt against default, and multiply it by the outstanding debt of each individual country. And we add it all up, divide it by the supply of Bitcoin, and you get an intrinsic value of Bitcoin. I get to a price of Bitcoin a target of over 2 million US dollars per Bitcoin. In today's dollars, I need to stress that. In dollars equivalent 2023, the price target's over 2 million. And part of that is because I believe it will replace US Treasury bonds as the global reserve asset of the world, which means petrol producing countries won't store their trading US dollars in US treasuries. They will prefer to store it in a better store of value. And how do I get that? Well, basically I take a percentage of the total global financial assets that exist in the world right now, and I say, what if Bitcoin gathers a 5% allocation of this total addressable market? And that's how you get a price target of over 2 million US dollars per Bitcoin, because it's going to take a share of global debt, it's going to take a share of global real estate, a share of global equities, a share of gold, fine art, commodities, currencies, all of the financial assets of the world. And you do some simple math and you can get to a price target easily of over $2 million US. That's a lot. That's asymmetric upside.
Crypto is an industry that is built to favor scammers. And some of the biggest players in our financial system are in on the con.
We need it to be more acceptable to own Bitcoin. I mean, all the things that have happened have scared a lot of people away from owning Bitcoin. I mean, FTX, you know, it wasn't anything like Bitcoin, but nevertheless, to the uninformed, they were like, oh, that stuff's bullshit. Look at this fraud. And this is different.
Bitcoin and crypto are two different things. Bitcoin is digital scarcity, digital gold, whatever you like to call it. The most true form of money we've had in crypto is just fiat on the internet. Just because something's shiny, it promises a yield, and it promises a solution that we don't need, doesn't mean that it's special, because crypto is the antithesis of the phrase, we used to suffer from problems, now we suffer from solutions. And there's 20,000 solutions that are being bought and sold on all of these exchanges, and Bitcoin is the exact opposite of that. Bitcoin is the answer to the question, what would happen if nobody could get in the way of us protecting our time?
It's changed my life, not just financially, more my soul. It just gives me hope for the future. It's completely turned my view of the world upside down in a positive way.
Bitcoin makes you care about your future, teaches you self-control, and for me personally, I struggle with my health. I used to be a very healthy weight. I used to be a 3-sport athlete, and it's something that I'm working on, and the community has been supporting me on, is to improve my health and get back to a healthy weight. I want to live as long as I can, and I want to enjoy the Bitcoin that I've earned and that I've accumulated, and I want to live a happy and healthy life. And Bitcoin has made me care more about myself and care more about other people, and just made me a better person.
There's no doubt that Bitcoin plays a big role in these people's lives, so much so that they started a Bitcoin meetup. Greg, help me out here. What's this meetup called again?
There's a lot of new faces here, and I want to welcome all the newcomers to Mass Adoption. Mass Adoption is a Bitcoin-focused meetup that started back in May of 2022.
I think meetups are critical. It's one of the best ways to kind of get yourself up the curve to learn.
Even for me, and for many of us Bitcoiners, it took me a year philosophically to be able to accept what Bitcoin truly is. And I think because of that, you really need to have the personal touch on the ground, the grassroots level, to communicate what it is and how it operates.
It's probably one of the more healthier environments for discourse that I've ever been, where you can go somewhere and talk to them and then have a conversation with the rules. We're only going to talk about this one thing, and I'm not going to let my anger or my bias get in the way, because we do have this big problem to solve. So I think the reason why I came back was for the people, because these people are the salt of the earth. They are the most humble and the most honest people, because once you humble yourself by learning that my view of the world was so wrong, you want to seek other people that have also done the same, because that means that they're going to be just as honest with you as they had to be with themselves to get there.
As soon as people start getting into Bitcoin and learning more, obviously it's true for me and true for a lot of people, they just want to keep learning. And learning about Bitcoin means you get to learn about the legacy financial system and how broken it is. So that's always positive anytime that happens. And I think that within a community, if you're able to lower your time preference, make long-term decisions, like communicate in a financial way that makes sense, that just has to be a net positive for everybody. So I think that there's a community of Bitcoiners, but I think that Bitcoin can help like a wider community, and I think that it will over the years as we see adoption grow and education grow.
When I got a stimulus check in 2020, it's like something's deeply wrong with the money. Started doing a deep dive, really understanding Bitcoin, figuring out how to get it without a coin base, you know, how to do actual peer-to-peer transactions, and then went to a Bitcoin meetup and immediately hit it off with everyone there. Knew it was something I wanted to participate more in, and since then haven't looked back. Originally, the first meetup I found in Boston was the Boston Bitcoin meetup, which is at a bar. And it was such a good experience. I was like, I gotta find more of them. So I found it on Meetup. I think I went to like the third or the fourth one, and it was just such a special group of guys. And since then, whether it's BitDevs, whether it's Mass Adoption, whether it's the Boston Bitcoin meetup, if I'm free that night, I mean, I obviously had to watch this little one, but if I'm free that night, I'm at every single Bitcoin meetup I can go to. And every time, I've never had a bad experience at a Bitcoin meetup.
I got involved with mass adoption because about a year ago, I put on a small Bitcoin gathering for high net worth individuals at Wellesley Country Club. And we were fortunate to have some great speakers like Greg Foss and Larry Lepard come down and present to this group. We also filmed the whole gathering and put it on YouTube. And I got a direct message from my partner, Greg, and at the time he wasn't my partner in mass adoption. And he said, well, what was going on here? I run mass adoption. How did you put on this great gathering without me knowing? And I said, well, why don't we meet for coffee? And we met for coffee, and you know, a marriage was born. We realized we were on the same page with the same goals and the same vision. And we said, let's team up. We'll be better together. And hence, we have mass adoption. Well, we ended up wanting to grow mass adoption to what it is today and more in the future. Is I saw the momentum we were getting. Each meetup was getting more and more people. We introduced a speaker series, and that drew in over 100 people at our first meetup. We were fortunate to have Jason Lowry come in and speak, and it was a great gathering.
If you want to stop asking for permission, you have to use something that's permissionless.
In my fiat career, I had grown concepts, and I got the same feeling with mass adoption that this is growing. I saw that if we were smart about it, we could grow. And secondly, and more importantly, I have young children, and I think Bitcoin is such an important part of a future where you're sovereign and free. And so I want to spread the word about Bitcoin to let my children grow up in that type of environment.
All groups working around Bitcoin tend to be very great because the people are givers. And that's what I find about the Bitcoin community, is that it's a community of givers. And that's ubiquitous, whether you're in Boston or Guatemala or El Salvador or Toronto, Canada, or Amsterdam or Bulgaria. I traveled to Bulgaria, and you just meet these people that tend to be very concerned, but also genuine people who want to secure the future for their children. They're not takers. They don't want to live in the here and now at the expense of their children.
The subculture around the mass adoption group, it's unique in its support and its understanding of the importance of freedom. And that is probably due to the fact that we are in Massachusetts, the beacon of freedom for the United States, where it all started, right? And I think that is kind of the undercurrent, the base level philosophical worldview that all these people hold. And that's why mass adoption is unique to some of the others.
Whoa. Hold on a second. Are you telling me that the Meetup decided to put on a freaking festival? Where did this crazy idea come from?
Well, we thought of having a festival because I saw how much we were growing in just the monthly meetups. And again, I have experience my whole career. I was always at flea markets and throwing festivals and things like that throughout my business career. And I said, well, what a natural, let's throw a festival to demonstrate to people the ease and use of Bitcoin.
My incentive to want to help out was that I thought that it was completely crazy that we were going to go try to put on a festival at the time, 6 months, years old. And I said, wow, these guys are driven, and I think this is crazy because I think, my strategy with everything is a little bit, more risk averse, but after seeing what Bitcoin does to people, it kind of teaches you to go out and take risks. And I've kind of realized that a lot of the things I've learned over the years that were sitting in the back of my mind is that risk takers are the people that change the world. And I saw someone like Jeff and Greg who are a little bit more seasoned than I am, and I said, you know what, I think we do have to go for this because this is going to keep the steamroller going, build the community. So when I saw that drive and that desire to do it, I said, that thing that I was missing when I was only a year or so younger, that's this right here. And instead of me trying to fix the world myself, I have to get on this train and I have to go build it with them. And that Freedom Festival was the first opportunity to take a very hard project and kind of bring it into reality. So I was all in from day one.
Can I have your attention? Hold on. If I could have like 3 minutes. If you haven't heard, we're throwing a Freedom Festival in June, on June 24th, okay? A Freedom Festival powered by Bitcoin. So I hope every one of you can join us. We're gonna need all the help we can get, and tickets are on sale.
Before Bitcoin, my biggest passion was electronic dance music, EDM, and I have gone to many festivals. I go to at least 1, 2 a year. It's always been a dream of mine to throw a festival. So when Greg and Jeff came to me with that idea that they wanted to throw a festival, I was all over it.
Yeah, it's pretty insane to see a meetup go from like just a simple meetup, people getting beers and eating pizza, talking about Bitcoin, to like actually being registered as a company and people willing to put in the time, not for pay, but just to throw on a festival because they're so passionate about that thing. I mean, I've been a part of a lot of football teams growing up, played football my whole life and in college, been a part of a lot of different groups, and I've never seen something where people get together and are just so passionate about it that they'll willingly volunteer their time and their energy to help put on something just because they believe so deeply that this can be such a force of good for the world.
I remember Jeff talking at one of our meetings that this is going to be a Freedom Festival first, and we want to have a flavor of Bitcoin built in. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to, hyper obsess about, the tool that's going to help us get what we want. And because at the end of the day, we don't want money, we want freedom. We want the things that money buys to provide a better life for our friends and family. So I think getting back to our roots as a country is really important. And I think having that in the Northeast puts a little bit of a historical spin on it.
I think the freedom angle, first of all, hasn't really been corrupted by the government yet, like Bitcoin has been spoken badly about. So I'm really hoping over time as this develops, we're able to pull in Americans that love and understand the necessity of freedom. And then we can explain why Bitcoin actually will help creating freedom, take back our freedom.
We're in Massachusetts, obviously, and this is where the seeds of the American Revolution were sown 250 years ago. And that movement, if you've studied your history, was started by a brave minority of colonists. And now it's our turn to stand up. And it's about building a human society built on a foundation of bedrock, not sand. It's about peace, hope, love, and truth. It's about Bitcoin. Thank you. Now I want to turn it over to our guest speaker, Luke Broyles.
One of my ideas was, what about the next 250 years? What could we expect, and is it even rational trying to expect that? So they're both related, but I thought they both had a different vantage point there.
As mass adoption continues to put on meetups, it was pretty clear that they had a lot of work that needed to be done in preparation for the festival.
Finding a location for our first festival was a little bit challenging. It was one of the biggest challenges we had. We viewed Wachusett Mountain, so we envisioned having a festival mountainside because it's within the ethos of Bitcoin. And we looked at football stadiums, and eventually we settled on the Reggie Lewis Center and the outside parking lot. We initially were going to do inside the gym, but then we chose to do the outside parking lot. It's in the heart of Boston. The backdrop was the city, and we figured let's leverage being in Boston, and so that's why we chose it. Dealing with the Bitcoin vendors was actually a longer process than you would imagine. So we had great vendors like Texas Slim, the Beef Initiative.
Well, me and the mass adoption guys have been talking basically almost a year now. So it's a collaboration. You know, it wasn't a competition from the very beginning. And what we knew that what we want to do is bring a new message. And we're doing a decentralized message. That takes a lot of groundwork to facilitate. We interacted, we collaborated for almost a year now to come to this point. And so this collaboration's been going a long time. I think this is ground zero, basically the next phase of this type of collaboration where we start bringing community efforts and we let it lead with Bitcoin and clean food. We're in this phase of the Beef Initiative. I've been doing this for about 3.5 years, formally as the Beef Initiative for 2 years. What I want people to understand that this is one handshake, one relationship at a time. And if somebody can go away here today and saying, I'm gonna change my consumption model. What is a consumption model? It's your audio, your video, and your food. If you really directly look at that, you start looking at sound money, sound food, sound communications for a sound future. That's how people need to start living again. We need to get back to the source of the seed of where we came from.
Proof of Ink, Satoshi's Journal, Pennies for Bitcoin, and very excited that the vendors decided to support us and believe in our mission. Finding sponsors presented a challenge because this was our first festival, so we needed to partner with people that understood our mission, that also had seen the growth of mass adoption throughout the year. So luckily, we already had sponsor relationships, if you will, throughout. We had some sponsors for our meetups, and so we just reached out to them and said, this is our next thing that we're doing, and they decided to support us, so we thank them for that. And one of the biggest relationships that we curated that was a really strong help for our festival was the relationship with Swan Bitcoin. Swan Bitcoin, in my opinion, is one of the larger players. I don't know financial statement-wise, but as far as impact on the community, in my opinion, they're at the top. So they have a large following, very credible people that work for them, and it was a huge boost to mass adoption to have Swan behind us.
So let's roll with that. Greg Foss, why don't you go first?
My name's David Foley. I'm happy to be here.
Michelle Weekly, your thoughts?
We were fortunate to have Greg Foss come down from Canada. BJ Dichter drove his truck all the way down from Toronto and brought some of the originators of the trucker convoy, which was absolutely amazing. Larry Lepard, who lives in the neighborhood. But BJ has talked at our events a couple times. He's come down. So these are relationships we've cultivated over the year. So when we went to them, and we've had calls with them, and we discussed the idea about the festival, they said, let's go, we'll support you, and let's do this. And so it's just doing the right thing over the year and growing, and the momentum mass adoption had. They were gung-ho to support us and help us. So we were very lucky.
With all the ducks starting to line up for a successful festival, there was just one more duck left: selling tickets.
Selling tickets is tough because, we had no brand recognition really. So, running ads and selling tickets was kind of nerve-wracking.
What's up, global thrift shoppers? My name is Bill. I'm over here in the middle of the store at the counter. I'm with the Mass Adoption team. We're here advertising for a Freedom Festival that's going to be happening June 24th in Boston. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have live music, food trucks, vintage clothing, more vintage clothing for you. There's got to be a booth there from the global thrift shop that you're in right now. If you'd like to learn more information, come over and see me at the counter. We're having a good time. I hope you guys enjoy your shopping and the music. Peace.
What kept us going, I think, was just like, this is just the beginning. This is year one. Like, we're gonna build something out of this. No matter what happens, it's gonna be okay, and we'll grow from here. We're gonna learn from our mistakes. So yeah, money is always an issue, This was mostly out of our own pocket, and I just think that because we were so new, we weren't positive it would be a success. I know I was telling people that that if 80% of the things that were supposed to happen actually happened successfully, then it would be a success.
I want to thank everyone, new and old, like I said before, for coming, traveling long distances to be here with us tonight, and hopefully some, if not all of you, will be there tomorrow at the Freedom Festival.
Through the course of writing the book and actually reaching out to people and talking to people, there is an undeniable hunger for this resource or resources like it.
Sound money created more prosperity in this world between 1789 and 1913 than at any other time in human history.
Like, when I was pitching the festival to my friends and to strangers online, I was just saying, wouldn't it be great to be part of this revolution, like stage one, like the first Mass Adoption Festival, and like to say you were there. And
It's it's very energizing right now to see all of our last 6 months, all our hard work, everyone from Mass Adoption team, that everyone, it's coming together, everyone's doing their thing, and I'm anticipating an amazing day. It feels great. I won't let myself feel like that until it's over and successful, but right now I can feel that might be how I feel at the end of all this.
Scream Bitcoin. 1, 2, 3.
Good afternoon, Massachusetts, and welcome to a historic event. So this is the first Freedom Festival by Bitcoin Mass Adoption.
It was very tiring, but at the same time, I got a lot of moments where there was a lull and I could step back and I could see the community forming, and then that was kind of a surreal moment to have that happen. I remember looking when Proof of Ink was making their shirts at the festival, and it finally clicked in my head because he pulled the iron up, and I remember taking a video and I saw the shirt. It was the first time I saw it, and it was his rendition of the Boston Tea Party, throwing bags of money into the river instead of bags of tea. So I was just kind of like thinking about how history has been here before, but almost in a different way. So it's the more things change, the more they stay the same. So it's almost poetic that if revolutions can start in a place once, they can most certainly start there a second time.
I want to make sure everyone understands. Bitcoin does not care.
We're all here, right, thinking that Bitcoin does represent freedom, right? And the earlier panel talked about it, Alex talked about it, and it is kind of a world that is moving toward decentralization.
Bitcoin doesn't care if you're a woman, a man, you're black, you're white, Chinese. Bitcoin is for everybody, and that's why I'm so excited to be here.
what I come to realize is that there's a huge advantage and privilege of being American, in my case, and knowing that I get to use the dollar. But that's really not fair worldwide, and Bitcoin offers an opportunity to level a playing field.
I think part of the reason Bitcoin is such sort of a threat to regulators and the government is that they thrive off having that control and that ability to print money.
I always love seeing Foss speak and getting the crowd riled up. I'm excited to hear the Canadian Freedom Truckers speak and hear a little bit more about that story in person. I've read about it. But meeting them in person and seeing the people who actually stand up and fight for things in person, seeing that they're just real normal humans, it's encouraging because we look at people as heroic or mythical figures when we hear them all over the news and they stand up for things. And then you meet them in person, they're just another guy who put his foot down and said, no, this is the way it's going to be and this is what I believe in. And I think that's super important to have.
I love Greg Foss, Larry Lepard. I think they're incredible. They're hilarious and they really just don't care what anybody thinks, and it's so refreshing. So I love hearing them speak. I love hearing new people that I have no idea who you are and you're speaking, and I just want to know more people and get to know everyone and just kind of increase my network, and so that's why I like coming to these places. Being a Bitcoiner can sometimes feel very lonely because it's a small community, and I think the general consensus from the GP and the government is that we're the crazy ones. And so at times it can feel a bit isolating being a Bitcoiner because you feel like no one really is seeing what you're seeing. So for me, I love coming to these events because it feels kind of like a family. They're in it for the right reasons. They just want to improve the system and make the world better for our kids.
One of the things that non-Bitcoiners don't understand is the ethos and the community within Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin brings people together. I mean, for example, our team is stellar. And I've had many companies with many teams, and this is the best team I've ever had. And this is people that aren't getting paid. No one's getting paid. And we're all fighting for the same vision, and it's brought us all together as a team. Everyone at the festival, at least what I observed, was just extremely happy and extremely engaged. I don't want to say it's cult-like in a negative way, but it's got some of the same characteristics where people have a common understanding, a common vision. It's a vision of equality, of sovereignty, of not being manipulated, of not having to trust a third party.
Hopefully the movement here grows and the mentality here grows. And it would be great to have bigger and better Bitcoin conferences in the future. I think Boston's a great capital to lead this movement.
We're fortunate to have the team at MassAdoption that has a lot of vision and energy, and we plan a lot of great things in the future. I mean, we plan on holding another festival next year, and then we plan on taking these festivals and putting them throughout the country. And secondly, we're venturing on some other projects that we're at the very initial stages on. I don't want to say too much about it, but it has stuff to do with AI in Bitcoin.
What's amazing to me is actually what they've been able to accomplish in about a year, right? And that's a credit to Jeff and Greg. I mean, they've done a good job with social media, they've done a good job communicating, and they've reached out and gotten really good guests. And so you kind of add all that together, it just works, right?
And the sky is the limit, right? I mean, they seem to be pushing really hard and take this very seriously because they have such passion around it. And when you have passion around an issue and you're doing it just for that purpose, who knows? I'm shocked by some of the people they've already had as speakers. And I think what you're gonna see is not the quality of speaker, but maybe the level of influence of the speakers is going to increase over time. You're going to get more substantial people speaking here, and that's just going to help the group grow, I think, beyond just this small region as well. And I'll do my best to help them.
Thank you, Jeff and Greg, for having this, the first one. Freedom Festival, and thank you everyone for being here.
Like, even if it was a big failure, I don't think it would have stopped us from planning year 2. So I just think the fact that we're building in this bear market, right? We say bear markets are for building in Bitcoin. You want to create value. You want to team up and create something that is going to bring Bitcoin adoption to the next level. Because who knows, maybe next year, maybe 2 years, maybe it takes 5 years. But I think our festival will be just as big, if not bigger than, the Bitcoin Magazine festivals in Miami and next one in Nashville. I definitely see us getting to that level, so we can do it.